Okay, so as we are waiting for other students to come in, so okay, so I want you to meet Emma Rose. Emma Rose wave to Debbie. That's Emma
Hi,
Rose.
Emma.
And Anthony, do you know Anthony?
Yeah, I met Anthony.
Okay.
And I
So
know Faith from.
they will be helping with the costumes, and they're on the
Awesome.
campus. And then
We should probably make sure that they get their names on Thursday
yeah,
during the meeting. Yeah.
and then Anathea, is she in? Anathea?
Oh,
Say hi to Debbie. That's Anathea.
Hello.
She will be helping the costumes. So basically, the students that are on the campus will be involved with either of the productions. And guys, this is Debbie. We'll get to know her better today in her like really fast-paced presentation, like boom, boom. That's what
I feel like I need a stopwatch so I can time.
Yeah. So let's see. Hi, everybody. Okay.
hello.
So, guys, I want you to meet Debbie Bradford. She's our guest today, and we'll start with her, or her presentation rather. Debbie has years of experience as a costume designer, and she's also a costume shop supervisor at University of Redlands. My experiences with Debbie is fantastic, whether we collaborated and she's costume designer, I'm a set designer, or we work together as two designers working on the costumes, or in this case, this semester, Debbie is in a role of the costume shop supervisor. I'm a costume designer. So we share so many different experiences, but I would like you to meet Debbie and learn about her experience and how did she arrive to where she's at right now. And she will also share her design presentation. So guys, be ready, write some questions for Debbie, because this is really, in a sense, what we are doing here in the class through the whole semester. And we just started it with Godot and then continued with the Makeover project and then the superhero. So in a nutshell, like what is the process of the costume designer, where the focus is, how do you create a depiction, visual depiction of all the information that you gain from the text. And then a little bit focus on the fabric, which is something that we are talking or reading rather this week. We will be reading. So it's my super honor to actually introduce Debbie Bradford to you guys. So Debbie,
Good morning,
the
everyone.
floor is yours. And you can share the screen when you feel ready to do it, okay?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Some of you may have seen me at the campus because I'm also the costume shop supervisor. I originally started out in fashion. I'm actually an alum from FIDM, but I got my design degree at the University of Cincinnati and on the East Coast. And I went back to FIDM for 1 year. But I started costume designing back when I was still in college, because our costume shop supervisor loved to have the design students because they could just give us a sketch and we could do the patterning and the cutting and the construction. Whereas the students that were assigned to do production credit things, they were just sort of help doing shows. What I want to talk about today is a little bit about the process of Pirates of Penzance, which is a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. It's not a full stage opera like you think of 3 or more hours of opera. It's a 2-act opera. And Gilbert and Sullivan kind of gave us, I'm going to say they're kind of like the fathers of musical theater. They took classical theater, gave it characterization, gave it spoken dialogue, and gave it music. But the score is written for an opera voice. It's not like your typical musical theater. And as I approached doing Pirates of Penzance, this stanza, I think at the very beginning, it says, during Queen Victoria's reign, and Queen Victoria her reign was more than 6 decades, like starting mid 1800s. And when I spoke with the director, she said, I don't want a museum piece. And that stuck in my mind that she didn't want a traditional handling of Pirates of Penzance that she had seen over and over and over again. And for those who go to see shows and musicals, you can see 5 different versions of the same thing, just given from that director's perspective. But when she said, I don't want a museum piece, that stuck in my mind. And I said, okay, how can I pay homage to the Victorian period without making it a museum piece, meaning the expected? So what I narrowed in on was steampunk. Steampunk is a literary and artistic movement. And I started out with researching steampunk artwork by steampunk artists from different parts of the world to kind of get a sense of what is that world, and do I want to stick with what British steampunk looks like? No, I went a little further. I wanted to see, what does steampunk look like in Japan? What does steampunk look like in Germany? What does steampunk look like in Australia? Those are just some of the places that I chose. When I looked at Germany, I wasn't as inspired because it was very militaristic and that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. And I liked the silhouette of the Victorian era, meaning sort of hourglass, but I didn't want the volume on the bottom and the big hoops and all of that. And that was another reason I chose a steampunk, because I wanted a more slimmed down silhouette. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Let's see if we can get to it. Let's see, is it share? Okay, I'm going to start up here. And this is some of the images that I sort of went through in my journey with steampunk artwork. It's very much about their futuristic view of what they thought the future would be. Very mechanical, very engrossed in time travel. And I not only researched what those visual images look like of steampunk, meaning what they wore, I wanted to know what that steampunk world was like. Those airships, those buildings, those cogs, those screws, all those things that they were very fascinated with. And we have to remember, this is what they thought our future would be like. Not necessarily what it became, but this is how they saw it. And this one's actually from a movie, Baron Munchausen, which is a very much steampunk era movie. But most of this is like artwork from steampunk artists. And some of it can get very dark, but I tried to steer away from the darker part because Gilbert and Sullivan's Pirates of Penzance is comedic, it's whimsical, it's funny. They make fun of themselves. And this is one from Japan. She still has that corset, but look how they combine that sort of kimono essence to it, but she has a very militaristic headpiece. This one's also from Japan. I love this image because it kind of reminded me, this is what I think my pirate should look like. They carry all of their valuables on their person, even though all of these people they are on their ship with, they trust, but they don't trust them enough with their valuables, so they keep them on their person. I like the richness of the color. I didn't want to go super, super dark. And actually, at the time I was designing Pirates of Penzance, I don't know if anyone has ever watched the Amazon Prime show called Carnival Row. It's very, very steampunk inspired. Airships, there's ferries, the immigrants, so all of these different types of creatures. If you get a chance to watch it, please watch it. It is fantastic. The costumes, the fairies in the show are beautiful. And this guy here was my inspiration for my Pirate King. Because he's like the head guy. So he's got all the accoutrements, as you might say. And he gets the best of everything, and everyone else gets what's left. And this guy here, he's a little more toward Edwardian, but I like the style, and it took you away from that typical pirate look. And I even considered whoever was cast as the Pirate King to actually braid his hair. So I'm gonna take this down, right? Okay. So I'm gonna actually move my computer over because I didn't get to scan these. I'm gonna take this out for a second and move you over to my easel board here. Just give me 1 second here.
How cool is that? So guys, write questions for Debbie. So when she finishes her presentation, just ask her whatever comes to your mind and or related to the projects that we're doing.
I'm gonna pull this back, and you have to tell me if you can see the board because I'm behind my computer actually.
It's perfect.
Okay, so at the top was just an inspiration board because this show would have been a build and shop show. So some pieces we would have been building and some pieces we would have been purchasing, mainly because of budget and time restraints, because we did not have time to build lots of corsets. So that's why we took this route in terms of building. If you look at the very, very bottom, you'll see some of the fabric swatches, and I'll talk about those a little later. But the essence was drawn from a lot of the steampunk art. And if you can see the cops, they're kind of buffoons in the operetta. So they're kind of clown-like. They make fun of themselves. And then we have the general's daughters. I don't know if you can see her. She has a little circle, looks like a little circlet over her head, and it's actually hair. And she's wearing a corset over her skirt. And even though I thought about the Victorians, I said, I don't think they should be covered from head to toe, meaning everything should be long. That's why she has a cutout and you actually see her legs. And then I'm gonna move it over here. This is one of the corsets we actually purchased.
Wow.
So this was a way of getting our corsets because we didn't have time to build them, but we had to look for corsets, of course, that were very steampunk inspired with the nice hardware, chains, and the nice chunky buttons. And this would save us time because corsets are very, very time consuming and very labor intensive. And to build out a show as large as Pirates of Penzance, we would not have been able to build all of our corsets. I'm gonna move us back over here. Okay. Back in front of the camera here. Did everyone get a chance to see the corset that was on the dress form?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Fantastic.
So I found a source to purchase corsets, and keeping in mind that we're doing a steampunk theme, I wanted that hardware. I wanted those buttons. I wanted those chains. But I also thought about, within our budget, each of the daughters has to have a corset. Our Ruth character has to have a corset. Which pieces would we build? Which pieces would we purchase? And the corsets, of course, became the thing that's the most labor intensive. I decided to find a company that made a steampunk looking corset. So we would purchase all our corsets and we would build, of course, our other pieces.
Debbie, can you share the fabrics?
Sure. Let me take it off my board.
You did talk about the color choices and how that relates to, or how you're extrapolating from the steampunk what was.
So I don't know if you remember the guy in the picture, and I said this was who inspired me for my Pirate King. He's a series of patchwork. So he's kind of wearing a fabric from every single person in the show. He's sort of my canvas, basically. And I don't know if you can see if there's enough light.
Yeah, yes.
But it's basically a fall, what I would call a fall color scheme, meaning nice, rich, dark, textured fabrics. I stood away from the browns and the blacks simply because when I looked at the set, I didn't want them to get too dark. And plus, it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be light. So I didn't think to go super, super dark or super, super black. And lots of steampunk tends to be very, very dark, with the exception, as you looked at some of the Japanese things, they weren't as dark. That was the direction I wanted to go. And I also derived a lot of my color scheme from the artwork. A lot of the artwork that I looked at was where I got my inspiration for my color scheme.
How about the fabric choices?
The fabric choices were made based on when I narrowed it down to the colors that I wanted, and I wanted texture. I didn't want them all flat. Because when you layer the fabrics, different colors, the texture is what actually makes it pull forward. I mean, it pulls your eye. When it's flat, it doesn't have very much dimension. And that's another reason I picked, like, some of these are like upholstery fabrics, they're lightweight upholstery fabrics, but they have great texture and design on them. And that was why I chose them. And with the Pirate King being my canvas, that means every other piece that was pulled out, even some of the pieces that looked like the corsets, were all in his coat. So he was basically the canvas for the show.
Can you tell us about the use of upholstery? Because in the costume design, you just mentioned it, but
the use of upholstery, because a lot of people think of upholstery fabric as just things to cover furniture with. But the nice thing about upholstery fabrics, they come in all different weights, all different textures, and they normally come, excuse me, wider than apparel fabric. So, excuse me. I like to look, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat.
It's a larger variety of the patterns and textures that one can find in upholstery.
That you won't find in apparel.
Yeah, that can be very period, actually. I like also to use upholstery.
And I think sometimes if you limit yourself to just apparel textiles, it limits your ability to just shape it sometimes, because sometimes you can't get the shapes that you want, whereas you can manipulate the upholstery fabrics a little bit more. And like I said, they're wider for those of you who have designed or cut garments and whatnot. A wider fabric means you use less of it. It may cost you a little more per yard, but it's more width, meaning you can cut it out of less. And I actually like the textures and the different designs that I find on some of the upholstery fabrics that I don't find in apparel fabrics. Apparel fabrics tend to sometimes be very flat because they're meant to be worn on the body. Whereas an upholstery and an interior fabric, it's not designed to be worn on the body, but you can manipulate it so that it can be worn on the body.
Can you share what you have, these like reflective silver and fabrics that you have? What was that?
This was the PJs for the, it looks a little white on here. It's actually gold and like a thin gold stripe and a lace. It was the PJs for the daughters. There's a scene where they come out at night and the general is in his robe. And traditionally they have these long cotton gowns. But then when I watched the choreography, when they were rehearsing for the show, I watched how they moved, and I like that lightweight fabric because when it catches the air and they move within the space, it kind of reminds me like when I watch dancers. I like to watch what they're doing to the music and how they tell the story and how their bodies move, and it informs me in terms of what can I put on them to accentuate that movement, that shape that they're doing. So that was my inspiration in choosing that lighter weight fabric because I like the way it moved.
So what would you say is the main difference between fashion and costume design? Because you were doing both.
With fashion, because it repeats itself, anyone who's ever studied fashion history, there are things that are cyclical, meaning they go out of style and they come back in another version. But with costuming, the approach is a little different each time you do the show because you're doing the research of when did this happen? Who are these people? What is this world that these people exist in? And you're creating that three-dimensionally by the costumes that you're designing. Whereas with fashion design, I'm repeating trends. I'm telling color stories, but I'm repeating trends. But as with costume design, I can reinterpret that, meaning I can take that homage to the Victorian with that corset, but I don't have to give her a big hoop skirt. I don't have to give her a bustle. I don't have to give her something all the way down to her knees.
That's an excellent point, Debbie. With that in mind, do you have anything else you want to share with us, or?
I would say, in terms of approaching design, the methodology is pretty much the same when you do your research and you break down your script. The difference in doing musicals can be a little different because it's straight written who's in which scene, who exits and all of that. But sometimes in musicals, you may end up with someone that maybe is not written into that song, but that musical director may say, hey, I need these voices to fill out the song. I need this harmony in this song. So you end up with maybe more people on the stage than you had anticipated, which means you need to know that ahead of time. Because if you see them, you have to dress them. They need to look like they are part of this world. And when we were going to do Pirates, we crossed the bridge of, well, we're going to have a live orchestra, which, no problem, but we want to see them. Oh, no, we're not going to see them because that means I have to dress them, which also means I have to spend my money to dress them, and I don't want to spend my money to dress them. So no, I don't want to see the orchestra. I don't need to see them because I can hear them. So my emphasis was in dressing the people who were performing on the stage within the operetta and not the musicians who were performing the music.
That is just the greatest point that you just made. And Debbie, we'll have to continue this conversation, invite you again to talk about the realities and the budgeting and all of the stuff, production aspect of it, because so far this is like what's the most fun, which creating ideas and concepts, and then how do we break into the reality of it. So we'll do another talk about that subject.
Oh, no problem. Did anyone else have any questions?
Yes.
Is everyone awake?
I just wanted to say it was a shame that we didn't get to see your designs. I was supposed to work, I was supposed to mix that whole show, and I was so upset that it got canceled.
Yeah, that unfortunately, that happened. And we had done all of the work. Actually, we started designing Pirates the spring prior to the year that it would have actually been done. And we were waiting for casting. And then once we had casting, and everyone knows the pandemic hit and everything else, but it's like, what do? You've done the work, you've done what they've asked you to do. And it was fun for me in terms of I had never done a full steampunk show. And I really loved kind of going down that rabbit hole of steampunk because of the literary and the artwork. And for those of you who like steampunk movies, there's tons and tons of them out there that you can see, and books that you can read about steampunk. I was just fascinated to see it all come together in something like an operetta because I had never seen it before.
So did you have an interest in steampunk before? Or this is did you have interest in steampunk before? Or this was just a journey that you took?
I did, but when I started talking with the director, and there's actually a movie version of Pirates and Byzance. Please don't watch it because it's horrible. But it's like that whole idea when it's stuck in my head when it's like, I don't want a museum piece. That just kept ringing in my ear. And then I went, okay, how can I pay homage to this period, but make it contemporary? How can I make these women own their sexuality, their sensuality, and not be prim and proper and be covered from head to toe? So all of those things kind of went in circles in my mind. And then, like I said, I was watching this show at the time. And I was like, God, I love that. I would love to do a total steampunk show. And then I pitched the idea to the director and she loved it. And honestly, Snedger can tell you sometimes his ideas as designers, you think, this is fantastic. And you think, oh, is the director gonna buy it? Can I sell it? Because you're all excited, you got all your tools in your box and it's like, I'm ready to go. But you got to make sure that director's on board with you because they have got to be on board with the journey that you're about to take.
But you brought a great point here because as a designer, you need to have your own concept. You need to come prepared to the meeting with the director without even knowing what their idea is. And but you also need to be open to whatever happens.
Yeah, you can't be totally married to it in terms of you can't adjust, but you also have got to present it in a way that that director knows that you are fully immersed in that ideal and that path that you're taking. If you're kind of wobbling, then that director can say, I'm not sure,
That is to say, the idea where director is actually the only one who's controlling everything is not true anymore. Designers are equal contributors with the concept and the ideas. And as Debbie said, the more secure in your designs you are, the better chances that that will actually become the concept for the whole show. Most of the time, the designers come with the concept, and that's why we're sharing like the mood board with the directors as well, so that we see where we are at emotionally about the play. And most of the time things coincide. And sometimes the designers are the ones who actually create the whole concept in some cases, right? Because
exactly. When I decided to go with the whole steampunk ideal, originally the set was not going in that direction. And then when we all did our presentations, they went back and actually revised the set because the director liked that direction. So they actually went back and revised things on the set to be more of like that sort of steampunk world.
Okay, other questions? Lovelies.
Is everybody wait? Is that what I can't see your name? Anithia?
Anathea.
Anithia. Okay. What was your question?
Yeah. So you mentioned you went to FITM. What was that experience like?
It's very fast paced. I actually already had my degree when I went to FITM.
Mhm.
So I was able to challenge the program, and I only went 1 year. But I gotta say, what I did like about FITM was that I got to work with professionals that were currently working in the industry.
So it's like a lot of practical.
It's a lot of practical, but being able to challenge the program, because I had already taken pattern drafting, draping, and all those core courses, I didn't have to start at the beginning with those. But it's very fast paced. It's a lot of work, and if people fall behind, it's really hard to get caught up.
And did you take fashion design there or like costume design? Because I know they have the like, I don't know if they're graduate, just like
went 1 year with their design because I wanted to take the production classes,
Mhm.
and I took a lot of their production classes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Is there a strong difference between costume design for theater and for like movies or video games? Or is it, are they pretty similar?
They're similar in sense of history and things like that, but they're not in terms of production, because when you're doing a costume design, you're studying a certain period or era for a particular play or musical. Whereas when you are creating fashion design, it doesn't mean that you don't study history, because you actually are studying, silhouettes and things that repeat in those silhouettes. But you are doing them from a marketing perspective. You have created an analogy of a customer who buys this item, who is this customer? Whereas when you're creating costumes, you're creating for a particular play or musical, and that particular encapsulated of time.
Cool, yeah, thank you.
And we do study costume history as fashion majors.
We are studying the costume history here in this class. But I just want to add to that, what you were saying. I think the line between you really explain well the design for the musicals, and how that there's a lot of, beside the main characters, you have the chorus, and then you have additions that happens. But in terms of of the process itself, designing for costumes for the video games, for characters, for the movies, and for the theater, the line is really blurred in just the process itself, because it is all about understanding and creating the characters and how do you visually depict it. The production aspect might be different. Say in the movies, you will produce, the same outfit number of times in case that there are some like damages that are happening during like the shooting, or it's supposed to happen. Where in theater you just have one costume and that's it. And then you work with that and, not having this like kind of options. But the thing is, I think the real question is the style, because everything has tendency now to be so highly detailed and realistic in all the movies, theaters, and the video games. Not realistic as a realism necessarily, because you can bring some other design elements like steampunk or something that's more like science fictiony. But the idea here is that initially in theater design, you were taking paying attention to the fact that, okay, this is a proscenium stage. They just see the front, it's the distance. I don't need many details. Versus let's perform in more intimate space, like a black box where you see all the angles and it has to be very realistic. Well, that kind of idea is disappearing from the theater, and theater costume design become more of a design that is similar in terms of the details, accessorizing and everything, like movies and the video games. So I just want to add that, like, I don't know, Jude, does that make sense? And to everybody, but that's something
Yeah, it does.
to talk about a little bit. Okay.
But even in theater, though, you have some costume pieces that you are like prepared to be damaged, though, right? Like, because you got like, I just remember for the memo, I had like 9 pairs of stockings because I could not stop ripping them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you have to create more than one if it's an action that happens. To say they want a distress item of that. Sometimes we will build two. I mean, like in Urinetown, we actually built the lead lady's dress. We built 2 identical dresses, and one was actually distressed.
which we are doing in the show right now, for this show, for the gruesome. We have 2 jackets. One is the nice looking, and the second one is the same jacket but distressed. It's the same idea. But in the movies, like, if you have like a throughout the, just think this way, you shoot like for how many hours, like 8 to 10 hours, it depends, in a day, and then the next day you have to continue with the same scene, but the costume is already distressed. There is no time really for altering or washing or doing anything, and you just come with the same costume and start over again. That kind of idea. Okay, any other questions? Faith is doing makeup with her kitty ear. It's hilarious. Okay, so
I have a date after this, so I wanted to work pretty.
look how exciting. Okay, so guys, any other questions for Debbie? Response?
I had a question.
Come closer
I
to
can turn you. I can barely hear you.
Sorry, I had a question. So you had the steampunk like idea. Was that like the original idea, or did you have like another different kind of like outlook of the show besides steampunk for Pirates of Penzance?
That was more or less my original idea, where it started, where it morphed to. Like I said, I started with the artwork. It informed me in terms of palette. When they say the setting is during Queen Victoria's reign, well, she reigned for 60 years. So it's like, do we want to look like the mid 1800s, or do we want to give hints of that? And steampunk gave hints of that, but it also spoke to the steampunk futuristic look of what the Victorians thought the future would be like, in terms of the machinery, time travel, and things like that. And in terms of the women for Victorian age, they were so prim and proper and covered from head to toe. I asked myself, did I want this woman in this version to be that character? And the director says, no, this is not the character, because underneath, if you ever read Pirates of Penzance, it also says slave to duty. What are we a slave to? Ourselves, our habits, our morals, it's things like that. So there were questions we were asking ourselves. And then we said, okay, don't take the whimsical out of it because it's supposed to be funny. They make fun of themselves. They make fun of the queen. So there were things you wanted to touch on and say, hey, okay, I'm paying homage to Gilbert and Sullivan, and this is when they wrote this piece. But I want to give it a fresh look and bring it into the contemporary world.
That was a good question. More questions, please, for Debbie, or comments? She put all this presentation for us. That was awesome.
Is it Raquel? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Raquel. Thank you. I was just wondering, when you were studying for this designing, did you take any figure classes? Like, I assume like when you do that kind of thing, you have to understand the movements of how people look when you're designing, like when you're doing like the drawing of the people. I'm just wondering how that journey was and, you know, what the ups and downs of that were, because I still find myself even now wanting to make my characters more with the flow and movement. And I'm just wondering how you get to that point.
I do sometimes. I do it more, I think, when I do dance costumes and I do costume design. Sometimes I do it in costume design. I go back and forth. My biggest struggle was I learned to draw a fashion figure, which is an elongated figure. So I have to always remind myself to do the 8.5 heads high figure because that's considered traditional figure as opposed to an elongated designed figure like for a fashion design. But sometimes I do an elongated if I want to really, you know, exaggerate the shape and the proportions. I will do an elongated figure. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, you guys? Are you so shy today? What's going on?
I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep, so I'm trying to rack my brain for questions, but I have exactly one working brain cell. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, sorry.
So apologies if I'm a little bit quiet today.
Over here. Go ahead.
Have you ever worked on building for film, or have you ever worked builds for other people as opposed to designing stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of my job, even though I design a show at Rutland, because I'm the costume shop supervisor as well, I also supervise the staff that builds those costumes. So I'm the person that meets with that costume designer, well, in that case, it was myself, and decides, you know, okay, you know, things about budget, and we're going to get into that the next time. But yes, a lot of the things in the shop, that's where things are built, that's where they're fitted, that's where when the designer shops for things, they come into the shop, and all the performers come into the shop to be fitted. In terms of build, I am a pattern drafter and a draper.
Okay.
So I do a lot of drafting and draping as well. So I think of all those things in the back of my mind in terms of deciding, you know, what can you build
Yeah.
and what can you not build in your time frame.
Cool. Thank you.
I have a question. So what got you into design?
I've always been fascinated with costume design, although I originally went into fashion design because I was interested in designing clothes. But the more I did costume design, I liked the change of venue more, the say, of costume design more than I did fashion design. So, and I could take my skills of research, my skills of drafting, draping, and all of that, I could transfer those same skills over into costume design because I still had those skills and I could apply them someplace else. Do you have another question, Jay?
I did not, but we just did like a thing. We like said like what our favorite like fashion was from like the 40s to 80s, I believe.
Oh,
So
40s are fantastic silhouettes. Man,
40s.
if I could have lived in the 40s, women's clothing back then was fantastic.
It popped off so hard.
It's fantastic.
That's all I had. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jay. Hi, over here. Ask your question.
Yeah, in that vein, what's your favorite fashion decade, if you had to pick one?
I have got to say probably the 40s, because the women's silhouettes were very body conscious. They were very empowering. They were very, when you say feminine, some people think that doesn't mean empowering, but they were. And the looks just seemed to accentuate women. They wore the clothes didn't wear them.
That's so true.
If you guys ever get a chance to be fitted by Debbie, it's like the best, by the way. She's just like so good at structuring outfits. I love it. It's great. It made me feel so confident on stage, just in case, yeah, you ever get a chance.
Well, that's one of the things we have to do as costume designers. We have to make sure that our performers can do what they need to do in the costume that they are wearing. And if you restrict them from doing that, then we have not totally done our job as costume designers.
And that's a great point that you just made. So we'll talk more. So we'll have you again to talk about the realities of production.
All righty. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Have
you.
A great day.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
You're awesome. Debbie, Debbie left the room and it's us again. Okay. Well, how's everybody doing? Are you guys awake? I know, lots of things to do.
My brain cells are gone. Where did they go?
Oh no, that's terrible. Let's hold on to the brain cells. The rest can go away, like body parts and such. I don't know. Okay, so guys, I want to share. I want to share with you a few of the projects for the makeover. How's that? Also, I would love to see, Jay, can you share yours?
Yes. Was it click just share screen? All right, cool.
Yeah, so. And I'll make some comments about these, and after that, I would like us to kind of split in the breakout rooms and talk within smaller groups about each project developments and sharing. And then, like after like 10 minutes of that conversation, just like move back to the larger hall and share our experiences. That being said, we're in the different stages. Some students ask for a little bit more time. So I think it would be helpful, those that finished, to have to be in a group with those that didn't. So, okay. So Jay, were you able to get in?
See my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Right. So here's my character form. I had Shavas as my character to go based off of. So can you guys see it? Is it too small?
Yeah, make it like, can you click the slides? See at the bottom, There's a slide icon. Yep, click it so that it's, yeah, there you go.
So here's my makeover as Shavas, as my character. So here's her character form. 19, female, uh, funny, artistic, college student. Her sense of silhouette was comfy, baggy. Then like for like the notes and alterations, I wanted to, so like you'll see through like the hand gesture, she also has like some sort of like sass to her and everything. After like getting like backlash from like a disrespectful person. And I also put her hair in curly in a bun. So and then I also incorporated some new different colors that based off of what I was getting from her. I also looked at the psychological and then the personality colors and the meanings. So here is kind of the process. So here's like the mass gesture where before it was shaded, and then this is a picture I was given. So I kind of shaded like the mass gesture, and then I went for it. So she told me she's big into like the Nike Air Forces. So I wanted to make sure I put like Nike Air Force, and then like she also said comfortable but also like baggy. So oops. So I incorporated all of that, and then did like the 7 proportion in terms of like the head, and you can see on like the hand, she's kind of got some sass to her, and so yeah, that's the character. And in terms of synopsis, I wrote a synopsis. So it says 19-year-old African American Shavas Shine is constantly looked at and judged. I can't really see. Is judged for her sense of fashion. Many times she hears comments saying, "What is she wearing?" Although she finds herself not caring about what others think of her fashion sense. Whenever others come up to ask where she got her clothes from or why does she choose to wear what she is wearing, she always replies, "This is me. This is what I like to wear." Before, I found myself wearing what every girl wore, but I've come to make my fashion over. Soon, people come to respect and aspire her fashion and going against the grain. In less than a year, she comes to open her own fashion line / streetwear store. So I kind of gave like a backstory of like maybe like if this was a character, what would it be like in like a show or something? And so my learning and aha moment. So I said overall, I'm gonna say I learned a lot through this project. Ooh, the end. Oh, I said I learned a lot by doing this project. By using the course book for research, I learned a lot about texture, proportion, silhouette, and body / facial shape. I said I realized fashion can be anything you want it to be. You put it together as you wish. And it was also cool to compare and contrast between my partner and I's fashion sense, because in terms of like the pants, I kind of like wear like cargos as well. And then so like putting that on, I kind of saw like we have some like the similarities. And then personally, drawing hands was the hardest for me. Harding hands, I can hardly draw hands to save my soul, but I feel like through like the practicing, then doing like the 10 hands before like going to bed and everything helped me and stuff like that. So, and I also said like I feel like I'm progressing. So that was mine.
Okay, so yay. Guys, keep your comments for later when we go to breakout rooms and after. So write down if you have notes for the this presentation. I just want to go like really fast to few presentations because I want to share a couple things. One, this time around, I did not make a very precise requirement on the formatting because I wanted you guys to do whatever you wanted to do, taking in account what we did first time, which is Godot, and using maybe that as some sort of like reference that you already have. I also wanted to kind of explain that in each assignment there's like innovation moment. So how do you approach your assignment? I don't want you to be a bunch of robots that are just like replicating what I'm telling you. This is what I want you to do, but I want you to understand the essence of the process. So in Jay's presentation, he had a very interesting like response and sense of who Shavas is and what he wants to do to add, to contribute to her character and creating an extended version of Shabazz, and which is really fascinating. And so I was hoping each of you will get inspired by each other and having this kind of response that's imaginative and can go further beyond who the person is as we know the person, right? So I think that way this was very successful. Another important point is this like costume development or character development form, and especially the notes on the sides, like what is that your opinion is about what is that's presented, what's the reality, and how do you go around altering that. So that's very important piece of the information that I wanted to see. In connection to that, I want to stress out, and I already made notes to a few of you guys, course book, okay? There are these pieces, you know, okay? Hello, not working because I don't have light.
Yeah, we can't see it, sorry.
Yeah, not working. Okay, never mind. The gray boxes in each chapter, they have very specific references that you can use to explain character traits in the visual world, silhouette, texture, color, all of that. So use that as your reference point. So when you have a notes on the side, make a reference there, okay? That we see that there is a connection, because there has to be a connection between what is the narrative versus the visuals. And the place to express that is in the form. So that was done really well on Jay's part, imaginative approach. Another thing, Jay, just, you know, we'll talk more about some details, what to add to it, such being discussion on the body type and the facial shape, because we need to take in account who the cast is and how, you know, what is that we are doing and why. Okay, so that's kind of, there are the couple things that I wanted still to see otherwise conceptually. And as a result, you did a really great job, Jay, right there, okay? So just, that's the reason why I'm sharing. Not to say that, you know, you can always add to it. So we'll talk individually about these pieces, what needs to be added. Faith, share yours really fast. Guys, is this helping? I'm not going to show some of the fantastic presentations that I got because they're fantastic, or you know, I'll talk to you guys individually about it. So, but these are different stages where you're at, because each of us are on different stage of experience. So, and that's why I'm sharing in this way. So Jay, without having experience, did fantastic job with the silhouette, with the drawing, and conceptualizing. Okay, Faith, let's see yours.
Hi, can you guys see it? Yeah, okay, cool. So, okay. This was the before photo that Ollie supplied me. So as you can see, he's being goofy and his hair is all big. But so then I did my character breakdown of it, and in it I took notes on things that I thought were important on the side and how I wanted to display them. And then I talked about the face and body shape. So Eli is very thin and rectangular in his shape, and he has a very rectangular jaw, which I think in men can be kind of attractive when you show off a strong jaw. And so with the thinness, I wanted to add some mass to his body. For colors, I wanted to give him a cool look that was like edgy and modern with the black, but I also wanted to keep his fun-loving nature of like just being goofy and fun. And so I added some blues and whites in there as well. I was really inspired when we talked about we both love the Studio Ghibli films. And so I was really inspired by Studio Ghibli for this. And like, what if I put him in Studio Ghibli was kind of my concept. I was also inspired by the skate e-boy culture because he said he kind of talks like that, kind of dresses like that as well. He's Japanese from Hawaii, and so I was inspired by that culture as well. So before, we have his hair being old, damaged, dyed, too much volume, and he has a square face. So I took his hair and I wanted to re-dye it black and slick it back to give him this kind of classic look of being like super cool. So, and then I was inspired by the J. Peterson like prompts on them, but I didn't actually find one on Peterman or Peterson, I can't remember what it was, that I liked, so I made my own. And it says, in a room full of people trying too hard to seem cool, too hard to be too unique, he stands out because he embraces the classics tradition, but still gives a modern twist to his style. And then other elements I added, I wanted to add some volume, like I said, to make his figure less narrow. He's really into skate culture, so I added a skateboard that I really liked, that embraced the Studio Ghibli films, that Spirited Away, as well as like skate shoes. The Air Force Ones again came up, which I think is really funny. But yeah, so that's what I did there. For the scale, I put that in there. It was a little long, but I think it's 8.5 if you really measured it out. But yeah. And then my hand sketches. And this was his silhouette. I really struggled with the silhouette, and I realized this last week too, and I didn't really put it in my presentation, but men don't get really cool silhouettes like women do usually, at least in my opinion. And then my aha moment is it's a lot harder to design for men because you have a lot more limited choices when you're doing a masculine presenting man than you would if you had like a woman.
That's a really great, actually, conclusion, which sort of Jake riff on the similar idea, but on the opposite, looking from the male point of view into female fashion. So I think those are all valid notions. Okay, so Faye, this was awesome. Thank you. Yay. Applaud, applaud. And I'm going to share the last one, which is Jude's presentation, because she cannot share it. Jude, do you want to narrate through it, or?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let me find it.
I have it pulled up if you'd like. I have it pulled up if you'd like.
Okay, hold on. It's up here. All right.
I can't believe it still keeps showing up as black. I've messed with the settings a million times. I don't know what it is. I don't know what PowerPoint's on.
You know, that's okay.
Like, gotta redo that whole slide.
Okay, so guys, can you see this? Character makeover, why? Okay, let me do in the slide motion. And can you guys see it? Yeah, Jude, you want to narrate and tell me? I'll just move.
Yeah, so I kind of thought of the storyline first before the character, and I wanted to approach this with the idea of like a setting called Urban Decay, which was, looking back on it, it's a little less cyberpunk and more just punk. Story inspired from like Japanese Yakuza and like 1920s mafias, and kind of how it's a story where things are moving to the future really fast, but the issue is that everyone's trying to double cross each other. Everybody looks very friendly and very like inviting and unassuming, and then they'll steal your 401k after swiping your credit card number for a Subway. So it's kind of it was kind of leaning onto like those kind of darker elements. Pig Latin, which was the character that I made for Emma, is kind of supposed to be an information broker who doesn't trust anyone at all ever, and is extremely kind of greedy and paranoid for that information, and is overtly aware that like this is a harsh world. Keep in mind, I made the character before realizing, oh wait, these are negative traits. This is not at all representative of Emma at all, and she's great. I just, it just happened. Yeah, essentially, I pulled elements from, I kind of wanted to really accentuate her curly hair, and make her very fashionable and like somebody that you'd see walking out of like Forever 21. Sunset colors, very kind of reds and oranges that are supposed to evoke passion, but like kind of seem friendly. But there are strong reds in her face, in like around the chest area, that kind of seem a little bit unnerving in comparison to all of the nice little pinks and oranges. I should have mentioned there's like a fantasy twist as well, but I slipped my mind. One brain cell. Yeah, I drew inspiration from Yoru from Valorant, and Oni masks and Cyberpunk 2077, and then tried to shove some pigs in there because I was really trying to figure out how to mesh in that animal element. Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I kind of broke down here where it's kind of just constantly reiterating that idea of large sweeping forms and inviting tones, only to get double crossed or to be really appalled by the sudden aggressive moves. Just contrasting things. My biggest issue actually with this design is that the outfit is very friendly, but I really was gonna hang on her body image and like body position to kind of give off that aggressiveness, but it really doesn't show off in this design. And if I had thought about it way more, then I wish I could have evoked that. But yeah. The hands are bad. I'm so sorry. They're gross and they make me sad. But I kind of wanted to how do I really describe it? I wanted to go in really close first and then zoom out and look at her full outfit. It's just kind of hard to explain because it all makes sense in my head, but it doesn't.
well, that could be like a perfect thing for the storyboard to show.
Yeah.
But what you were doing successfully, you're talking about this juxtaposition of the feminine versus animalistic, and in some ways, even though that you're making this statement that it by no means it really expresses Emma's true nature. There's some elements that you got inspired, which are obvious, like in the hair, in her facial expression. And I gotta say, knowing how Emma dresses every day, you made a really big difference with this like flowy dress that Emma is not wearing daily, right, Emma? So it's kind of, it is working towards makeover direction, and in a very complex way that is really related to your storyline. So it's fascinating. So in any case, there is a final design and the colors that you were suggesting, the division of the heads, the silhouette.
Yeah.
Right.
The head proportion I realized way too late is not correct because I thought 6 would work, but unfortunately it didn't. Yeah, again, with the colors, it's just, yeah, essentially how much can I shove strong warm palettes in there. I also streamed it on Twitch if anybody wants to look at it. The audio cuts out sometimes because I used like copyrighted music, so sometimes it just like cuts out. But yeah, if you just want to see some of my process, it's up there.
And
Should mention, oh yeah, sorry. My big aha moment was that I spent a large majority of the project stuck on one idea, that I was going to make it some big eldritch chaos like pig monster. Not at all this like cutesy feminine like information broker at all. And I was so stuck on it that I didn't get any work done because I couldn't imagine it. It was all just like very sequential thoughts, just not merged together at all until I was starting to run out of time. And I'm like, I got to do something. It's clearly not working, so I have to shift pace. And completely turned around to cyberpunk and like fantasy elements. And it ended up kind of working out. So that was good. I just wish that my brain worked quicker and didn't spend like 3 days wasting time like that. But yeah, it was a learning experience. So
but Jude, something about that is actually very it is a nature of the creative process. Sometimes we struggle, and then all of a sudden there is a breakthrough. And sometimes we don't even think about things, and it comes to us in a strange way, like in the dreams or just in the middle of something else. That is to say, each creative process takes time. Okay, and each of us have a different ways of accessing the and processing the information. So I personally think you did a fantastic job here, because you were going through, like you were developing your idea and reassessing and adjusting, and it all come from the inspiration that initially happened. So that's why I think this is a really, really great story about the process as well as the results.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate it.
So thank you for this. And Emma will tell us how does she feel in a group session when we come back, okay? So I just want to show you the range, okay? And each of you that did this project like had such a great understanding of the character development and design process, and I don't have time to share everybody's, but I really would like if we can actually create these groups. What do you guys think? And let me try to get these breakout rooms now. Okay, to assign. Do you guys have any questions in relationship to this project? No? Okay. So let's see. I will need your help. So let's say in the first room, I'm going to put assign to room one, ally and fate, because you guys are team, right? And then I'll put Jude and Emma Krasowski in the room one. So Okay.
I wasn't moved to the room.
Hmm?
How do I get into the room? Sorry.
It's supposed to show you. Hold on. Let me assign. Did I get Fate? Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, because I did not put her. So you're there. And then let's say Anthony. Oh, let's say Anatia is room 2. And Raquel, room 2. And then Anthony and Emma Rose. And then we have Jay in room 3 and Kalei Moon in room 3 and Noah and Shavaz in room 3. And guys, and I got the message to all of you.
I was real lucky. It was great. Did you?
It's more important to like understand who she was rather than like what she wanted in her presentation. So it's nice to see.
Yeah.
Right. So what did you think, Eli? Did you like yourself?
I did. I thought she did a really good job, honestly.
Thank you.
Emma, how do you feel about suddenly being a greedy information broker? I'm so sorry. Did the pig, were the pig legs a little much, you know?
The pig legs a little much.
You know, on one hand, you
It's a share screen in green, I think.
Yeah, it's green. At the
Oh,
bottom.
right there. Okay. Got it.
Epic.
Love
Okay.
technology. We love technology.
So, like I said, I wasn't very happy with it, and for some reason, like I don't know I don't know if you guys have this issue as well, but when I draw, I get angry because when I take a picture of it on my phone, it doesn't look how it looks like in person,
Yeah.
and it like triggers me because I'm like, I swear it looks so much better in person. So I took a picture in another angle that
What hairdo did you change?
What type of hair you said?
Yeah.
Or well, I kept it like sort of basic.